St. Louis, Missouri. It's Wednesday practice day at the 2025 Frozen Four here at the Enterprise Center. Tomorrow, 4 teams will face off to see who gets to move on to the championship on Saturday. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly and the head coach of Robert Morris University, Derek Schooley, and the head coach of St. Lawrence University, Brent Brekke, to preview this weekend's games. And Jim, it's a pretty exciting route to get here, and I'm looking forward to seeing all 4 of these teams who are playing their best hockey at the right time.
Well, you have to be, right? To get to this point, you have to be playing really well. And I think that all 4 of these teams can say that. But can we start with the city? It's been a while since we've been here. 2007, we remember Michigan State, the dramatic victory over Boston College in the national title game. That was the last time we were here. It feels different. The building looks different. I was even here in 2019 for the Stanley Cup Finals. Seats are darker. It just has a different feel. It feels a little bit different. Schools, I know this is your hometown. Yeah. Does it have a little bit of a different feeling, or is it just me?
So this is a building that was built in the 1990s.
Yeah.
And I was also here for the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they've redone everything. The seats are a different color. When they built the building, Mike Keenan was in charge. He wanted purple seats, just like Madison Square Garden. And that's where that went. And it's dark, it's silver. I think the building looks awesome. Obviously, anytime red with the baseball stadium and the arch and all that good, cool stuff, it really is going to make this an exciting championship.
Brent, when you look, you've seen some great events in college hockey over your coaching career. You've coached on benches in national championship games. What is it like as the coach to come into a city? Are you just kind of taken aback by the whole experience?
Yeah, it's terrific. I mean, the cities that host the venues are just tremendous. I mean, everybody is really invested in it, and I think the comfort level as you're going around the cities to get to know the different things away from the hockey itself, to enjoy the whole experience, is a big piece of it. And there's so many different cities that have a lot of appeal. You know, You get outside the rink and the kids have some free time. You want to keep them dialed in as much as possible, but you know, you want to enjoy that experience and see what the cities have to offer. And obviously St. Louis has so much in this area. You know, and the building is terrific. It's actually my first time being in here. I've seen it on TV many times, obviously, but it looks like a newer facility with the upgrades they have in here. So the city as a whole, great venue to have it at, and just the building's just gorgeous as well.
And the Blues are really behind that. That's
Yes.
the big thing. The Blues, you cannot talk about this event being held here without talking about what the Blues have done to get this event here. They've been to Frozen Four after Frozen Four after Frozen Four. The committee did a great job picking this location.
Pat on the back, too.
I was on that committee.
Yeah,
I'm crazy that I'm from this area and they got it, but really good. You can't talk about this venue and this city without talking about what a great job the Blues have done.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the teams that are going to be playing. It's a rematch of the NCHC championship between Western Michigan and Denver. A lot of drama coming into that, a lot of hard work to get here, a lot of overtimes in the regionals and even in the league playoffs. Derek, let's start with you. I know both of you guys have a little bias in this as Western Michigan alums, but what do you look for as strengths from these 2 teams? Let's start with you, Derek.
Well, in listening to the press conferences today, you're talking about the team that wants to knock off the defending champion. And then you're talking about a team that has the experience of being here, and Matt Davis, who hasn't barely given up any goals the last 2 NCAA tournaments. So I think the big storyline in mine is Western, they can play any type of hockey game. They can play a low-scoring game, they can play a high-scoring game, but I think it's going to be the offense against how Matt Davis comes in and plays tomorrow.
Brent?
Yeah, I think the matchup with Penn State and BU is an interesting one because you have elite skill in BU. I mean, everybody's well aware of that, and they can take a game over real quick. They can be sleepy, which they've shown that, and then they flip the switch and all of a sudden they turn it on, and it's a lot of offense. And that's a scary piece because just when you think you've got things in position to take control of the game, it can be an issue. And Penn State plays fast. We played them earlier this year. We felt good early in the game. We had a little bit of a lead, and they can jump you quickly. Their pace, they're a great 200-foot team on both sides of the puck. Their commitment, you know, on both sides is tremendous. Their puck pressure without it, they create a lot of turnovers, and they're just a hard-working team. They're fun to watch.
A lot has been made at this Frozen Four already about the experience of two of the teams, Denver, the most national championships in 10, Boston University, a blue blood program, and then two teams that have never been here, Western Michigan and Penn State. We listened to Western Michigan, Pat Ferschweiler talked about calling other coaches, leaning on some of his network. I know you're at Penn State, you're a school like that, you have plenty of coaches that have been on the big stage. How much as a coach do you have to lean on others at a time like this when the experience is really unfamiliar?
Yeah, we actually were fortunate to talk to the assistants at Penn State here just a little while ago as they were entering the ring for practice, and they talked about having some of their coaches in the athletic department or some of the other sports that have played in national championship games and been a part of that to come in and talk to their team. They use those resources, and they said it was amazing, just the experience and the knowledge they could pass along from being through some of those national championship games, and just kind of giving them a little bit of a history of what they've done in the past to be successful to prepare.
And you talk about the guys who have been here.
Yeah.
They're talking about how they'll use the bye week off and how they're recovering and how the different things that they've had to do with experience.
Yeah.
And David Carl mentioned that they did something completely different this year than they did in 2019. So you go through the whole thing, and you've got the new guys that are drawing on experience of other coaching networks, and then you've got the veterans that have been here. So that's an interesting storyline that you brought up there.
How much rubs off from a coach on a team? And the reason I ask is I watched the reactions at the end of the regionals. David Carl maybe cracked a slight smile, but it was very businesslike. You could hardly contain Guy Godowski, who was hopping up and down on the Penn State bench and headbutting the night before.
Yeah. Still had a little bit of mark on his head from the headbutt. But I think your team takes the personality of you, and I think those are the things that you really have to make sure that you do. If you're tight and you're nervous, then your team's going to be tight and nervous. And I think what I've seen from all the teams that through today, they're all enjoying the experience.
They are.
And that's what I think it's all about. And we'll find out tomorrow at 4 o'clock when the puck drops who what the right motto of it was.
When you now are sitting in a Thursday night scenario, that's when everything starts. But here you are the day before. You've practiced, you've gone through. What's the team doing tonight?
Well, I think there's probably things they do all year long that they want to keep in place. There's traditions that they have, or some of the things that they just feel like every Thursday this group of guys gets together and they're watching a movie, or maybe they're playing some video games or whatever. So you want to try to keep some of that familiarity that you have. And so, because I think when you get caught up in the moment, you start doing things you're not comfortable with that you haven't done in the past, it comes into the mental aspect of the game. So you just want familiarity of what you've done all year to be successful.
Not the most important part of schools, just repetition?
Yeah, I think the one thing that you watch practices, they're doing the same drills that they've done for the last 15 weeks. They don't change Thursday practice. I watched BU look really laid back and did a shootout. Western Michigan was fast. They went boom, boom, boom through all their drills and were done 20 minutes early. I think you're going to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
You can't change at this point. You're not going to all of a sudden get better at a certain system. You may make some tweaks for the opponent, but you're not going. If you have to fix something at this time, you're probably not playing in this game.
That's a good point. Well, we're going to take a break right here. When we come back, you've heard about name, image, likeness. You've heard plenty about the transfer portal. Now, how about roster limitations? That's the big topic, and David Carl has some thoughts on it when we come back. USCHO at the Frozen Four.
I'm Cole Caulfield, and I played college hockey.
I'm Adam Fox, and I played college hockey.
I'm Jake Gensel, and I played college hockey.
I'm Johnny Gaudreau, and I played college hockey.
Whether you're a fan or a player, nothing compares to college hockey.
Welcome back to USCHO Live at the Frozen Four on this Wednesday practice day. Jim, there were some press conferences going on today, and it wasn't just about the games going on the ice. There was some discussion about name, image, and likeness, the transfer portal, and even roster limits, which now seem to be up in the air.
Yeah, we know that David Carl has never been a coach to hold back on the way he feels and expressing his opinion. Take a listen to what he said.
Yeah, I think every year's a little different. It's obviously dependent on what players are in the portal. if they're a fit, if they're not a fit, what we anticipate losing. We really don't know that full picture until, middle of next week, probably at the earliest. And so you try and put it on the back burner. Obviously, I'll tell you, we start getting calls in February on people. And so you're constantly, the phone's always on, you're trying to evaluate things. There's obviously a lot of moving pieces right now between the CHL eligibility, the transfer portal. There's more activity in the player market than there's ever been. And, our staff does a great job. Tavis McMillan, leading that charge for us on the recruiting side. And I think in a perfect world, our view on the transfer portal is it's an opportunity to try and enhance our roster. We want to be in a position to want to use it. We don't want to be in a position where we need to use it. And that's a really fragile balance that you're always trying to figure out, when players are leaving, when they're coming, is it the right player? Do they have the right timeline? So that you're not stuck. We brought in 10 freshmen a year ago. If that number goes much higher, it's hard probably not to go into the portal and need to do it. So I think that's the biggest challenge today, is trying to manage your classes, your roster, so that you're not having to go, because then you start to be at the whim of what's in the portal. And, sometimes it's good, but sometimes it maybe is good, but they're not a fit for you, or you're not a fit for them. So it's really challenging. I think the most important thing we can do is continue to be plugged in, have a great recruiting list, continue to bring in freshmen, develop the people we have. And if there's an opportunity to enhance things like we did last year with Polkamp and Salmonen, then that's what we look to do.
All right, that's a lot to digest right there. He said a lot in there. Give me a takeaway. I mean, there's so much. I get it as a coach. There's so much. But what were some of your takeaways, Schools?
I thought the best thing he said is, just tell us the rules and we'll follow them. That's really the key. Is I think if the minute you start trying to sit back and not follow the new rules and think of how things were, you get left behind. You have to adjust to how things are nowadays. And the minute you start going back and going, gosh, I wish things were 5 years ago, you're not going back. So you have to learn what's going on. You've got to find your niche. You got to find everything, how you're going to do it, and you've got to adjust. And you got to think outside the box a little bit. And that's a little bit of what he said. He talked a lot about how they do things and what they want to do. But I think my key takeaway from it is you really got to find what works for your team, and you just follow the rules. Follow what the rules tell you to do.
Does that seem what it is, Brent? Just tell us where we're going. I guess that is what coaches seem most frustrated with right now, not knowing what's next.
Yeah, 100%. That's been the discussion here is, leading up the last couple of years, is this come to this point. And I think that's the big thing, is everybody just got to the point where let's just make some decisions here so we can move forward and adapt the way that we need to. And David was, I thought, really good as far as talked about. The one thing I thought was real important of sticking to who they are. It's not about going to find certain players. It has to be the right fit for their program. And that's the same for every program out there. I think you can kind of get led astray a little bit, and you start chasing things that gets away from what your identity is as a program and what you truly believe in as a coach. And I think that was something for me that resonated loud and clear. You have to be adaptive and stay ahead of what the rules are and understand, what could come into place real quick. But at the end of the day, you still have to be who we are, and trying to stay away from having those big classes he talked about. You get into 10 or 11 guys that are new faces coming in.
It's a lot.
That's a lot. That's you get back-to-back years. You get two young groups of kids coming in. That experience piece comes into play with the transfer portal, becomes an important aspect.
But I mean, just think of everything that we've been through. Everything like in the last 2 years, 5th years, transfer portal, major junior, roster limitations, name, image, and likeness, revenue sharing. That's a lot for a small period of time that we've had, and it's crazy. And you've got to be first general manager was named in college hockey the other day. I don't think it'll be the last.
No. And it's something we talked to a now former head coach about earlier in the season, that you have to be building a team through draft picks and free agency. How has that changed what you have to do and what your assistants have to do?
You got so much that you're monitoring. You're monitoring your current recruits. You're monitoring recruiting. You're monitoring major junior. The pool just got really big, and you hadn't watched those kids forever. So now you've got to learn that pool. You've got to monitor the transfer portal. You got to be talking to agents. I mean, this is it's a tough job for them, and they've got to stay on the phone. They've got to stay working, and then it comes to the head coaches to start. I always say the assistants have to go 6 to 7 innings, and then the head coach has got to come in the last 3 and be the closer.
But those 6 to 7 innings feel like a long time for some of those assistants. It is becoming a tougher job for assistant coaches.
No, it is. It is. You know, right now it's just continue, hit the space bar and refresh what that page is going to be when guys are popping into the portal. And that's, you sit there at your computer all day and then you're pulling up video immediately if you don't have a real good book on certain players that are coming to the portal. So it is a challenging time, and it goes in a little bit of waves. When that portal first hits, I mean, it gets bombarded. But then there's some kids that are taken out of the portal and end up making their decisions to go somewhere else. Well, a lot of times that comes into play where that spot has to be opened up at times, whether it's an incoming freshman that's being sent back, or it's another player that basically was on their roster that's being moved out. So there's continuous waves. I think it goes for a little bit, and then all of a sudden a bunch more names pop in there because all of a sudden spots have been taken, and now they're back in the portal themselves. So it's an interesting dynamic to work with.
Portal recruiting is recruiting on speed.
Speed dating, that's what it is.
Well, let's take another break here. We're going to come back. We will look at the story of Shane Lachance and a pretty famous grandfather as we come back on USCHO at the Frozen Four.
I'm Cole Caulfield, and I played college hockey.
I'm Adam Fox, and I played college hockey.
I'm Jake Gensel, and I played college hockey.
I'm Johnny Gaudreau, and I played college hockey.
Whether you are a fan or a player, nothing compares to college hockey.
That's Boston University captain Shane Lachance at this year's Beanpot. Lachance's bloodlines are well known. His father, a former Terrier, and his grandfather, the legend, Jack Parker. He is very impressed by Shane's leadership capabilities.
I think sincerity and maturity. He's a real sincere kid, and he's a mature kid for his age. So I think those two factors really help him out. And he's a hard worker, and people look up to guys that work hard.
Lachance's hard work translates on the ice, but when asked about his leadership qualities, that's the way he says he wants it.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think as a player, coming in as a freshman, you don't really know what to expect. I think you're just kind of trying to fit in right away and trying to gain confidence, and I think that goes in hand with leadership. Once I'm confident and once I know that I can lead by example on the ice, that's when I can start, using those other leadership tactics that I know work for this group. And like I said, I think it all starts for me with my play on the ice. That's the biggest thing for me, is just leading by example. And if I'm doing that, then I know I'm being a good leader.
Well, that's going to do it for Wednesday from the Frozen Four here in St. Louis at USCHO Live at the Frozen Four. We'll be back tomorrow to preview in more detail the games happening. 5 o'clock, Western Michigan and Denver, and 8:30, Boston University and Penn State. For Jim Connelly, for Derek Schooley, for Brent Brekke, I'm Ed Trefzger. Check everything out. We'll have coverage all week at uscho.com.